It's almost that time of year again, where the mornings start with a chill in the air, light sweaters can be worn, and your world gets covered in the most beautiful colors of yellow, orange, red, and brown. This year, I wanted to be prepared, so I'm creating 5 new pieces from mostly thrifted fabric, which I'm considering its own capsule wardrobe, and that I feel can be worn with many other pieces in my closet, as well as be very useful transitional pieces as the weather cools. So come along with me on my very own fall wardrobe journey. A little bit of explanation here. I will not be doing 7 days in a row. I have other things that I have to do. Also, I do think that would put me into a slump even if I could do it, which I can't. So I'll be choosing a couple of days every week that I can just dedicate to working on these projects. I'm attempting 7 days total, not 7 days in a row. That's why I didn't say a week. I didn't want to mislead anyone. But anyway, here are the 5 designs. First, we have this drop waist dress. It's very different for me. I tend to try to define my natural waist. I've seen a couple of mid-size and plus size people wear these drop waist dresses, and I think they're really cute, and I want to try to make one. Second is a shirt that I thrifted a while ago, I think over a year ago, that I just really don't wear because the style is just not for me. So I want to thrift flip it. 3 is a corset. This is going to change later. I'm speaking to you from the future. And at this point, I knew I wanted some kind of separation between center front and the rest of the bodice, but at this point I was kind of going for a Baroque Renaissance inspired look, kind of like what I did last year for one of my fall videos. Number 4 is an apron. I am in desperate need of a second cute apron. My regular looking apron that I bought a while ago is, first of all, very boring. Second of all, I've used it for everything from painting to bleaching to cooking, and it's grimy. So I had one thrift flip that I did a while ago and I kept redoing it. I wear it all the time. I really love it, and I want a second one, and I think I have a dress that I don't wear that I would love to flip into an apron. Last but not least is a dress. Actually, this dress is a pattern that I got off of Etsy from a store. Hold on, let me look it up. I just had it up. The pattern is called the Foxglove Slip from Studio Sado on Etsy. I will link that pattern down below, and I'll be sewing that in the next video. This will be broken up into 2 parts. I'm going to do the first 2 items, the drop waist dress and the pair of stays / corset / pair of bodies. And we'll start on the orange blouse, which will be next week, will be the blouse, the apron, and the last foxglove slip dress. Let's get started on the first dress. It's hot. This is the fabric for the first dress, the drop waist dress. I should probably try to pattern match, and I will a little bit, but I'm not gonna try too hard. For the pattern, we're gonna be using that Alicent princess seam dress that I did before. I think I expanded it too much in that project, so I don't think I have to give myself the extra ease that I did the last time, and that should fix the fit issues I had. Let's get started. So I went ahead and started pinning and cutting out each dress piece, and you can see the blue lines I marked on every piece, which is round about where I wanted the new length to be. I did make it a few inches longer than I thought I would need, but you can always fix something that's too long rather than being too short. Then with what was left over of the sheet, this was a sheet set, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned that. I had to think for a bit on what to do, but I ended up just making one long rectangle and cutting that in half to make it the proper width and a good length for the skirt section. The first step to work on was the tabs and lacing at the back, which both get sewn the same way. I start with a long length of fabric, fold it in half, and stitch that down. Then I take a safety pin and scooch it back through itself to turn it right side out. The only difference at this point was that with the tabs, I cut them into 10 pieces, and here I just tacked down the ends. Then I started working on the main dress and clipped the raw edges and sewed the center front piece to a side front piece. Then I did the same thing to the back pieces, being sure to add the tabs in where marked as I went. Lastly, once the front and back were together, I then put side seams together to make a completed dress. Okay, so this would actually be like an absolutely adorable mini dress, but I'm definitely not going to stop here. Everything's turning out really cute so far. I am getting pretty hungry. So I think I'm just going to finish off all the seams on the inside of this, maybe start putting the panels for the bottom part together, but that might also happen tomorrow. But so happy so far. I considered making shoulder facings again, but with the Alicent dress that had been a complete bother, so I just decided to fold the raw edges under twice. But I did cut out the collar facings, and one tip I have for making your facings lay correctly is after you sew them together, right side to right side, pin the raw edges of the seam allowance to the facing side and stitch that about 1/8 of an inch from the last seam. This will help the facing lay inside the garment without peeking out. Also, I do a quick basting stitch on the inside of the garment just to ensure that it won't move while I'm wearing it. For dinner this week, I was really wanting to lean into a fall recipe, and I have been craving biscuits, so I made a deconstructed pot pie recipe. Okay, day two. I think this is turning out really cute. I like the fit. So I actually think I'm gonna change my plan. I was gonna do a V at the front, but the more I look at it, the more I think I would just like it to be straight across. Give it a little bit more modernity because the pattern is a little bit like classic looking. I think that'd be a nice juxtaposition. And also it'll be a little easier because I literally just have rectangles. So it will all just be very even and very easy to hem and everything. The reason I took my pants off is so that I could actually mark like a straight line across here. And then we can start attaching the elastic to the skirt panels and then put the skirt panels onto the top. Cool. So first I tried my best to make a kind of straight line around the dress and then went back and fixed anything with my ruler. I realized that this would also make a super cute pattern for a top. At the time I couldn't find my 1/4 inch elastic, so I used my elastic thread for my skirt gathering instead. I've seen this a few times on YouTube Shorts. I ended up liking my normal way better, which I'll have a link above for a video where I talk about it a bit more in depth, but this was serviceable. You just zigzag over the elastic instead of on top and proceed as normal, attaching it to the skirt afterward. Both of these techniques are so much faster than sewing 3 lines of basting stitches or hand stitching your gathering. Okay, on to project 2. I've actually done another design change. I don't think I can help as I mull over a project. I can't help but change something. So for the corset, I was actually thinking that it could be a detachable sleeve bodice, because if you've watched my channel before, you know how much I love detachable sleeves. And I have this Outlander inspired, not that I've ever watched Outlander, but it has this bodice right here. And I think I could just make the corset part, and well, actually I don't even think, I know that I could make the bodice part and the sleeve part separate, and that way when the sleeves are off it becomes a corset, but then it can become like a boned bodice. And I actually have been wanting to do a pair of stays with a stomacher in the middle, so that's how we'll change it. So I have this fabric that's like a big old tablecloth. I used it, a little bit of it, for lining for one of my fall videos actually last year when I crocheted a couple of, what did I crochet? I crocheted a fall leaf bag. There we go. And then I don't know where where I got this from. It's still in its packaging, but it's another tablecloth, and I'm thinking that this could be the lining and the stomacher, and I'm thinking that I'll make the stomacher double-sided, and one side will be this, and one side will be this, and then I can make it all the same, or what's the other thing? What's the other word? Different? No? Contrasting. Oh my gosh. It either be a contrasting fabric or the same fabric, and then this can also be the lining, because I think I'm gonna do it with the lining this time. I say that every time and then I don't. No, I'm not, because I bought bias taping last night at like 12:30 in the morning. Okay, we're gonna get started. Now this sleeve was pretty historically accurate, which means that the seam was set towards the back of the sleeve instead of the bottom, so I probably should have used a normal sleeve pattern if I wanted it to be disconnected, but it turned out okay. I also had enough fabric for a self-lining, so the only thing I had to cut out of the second fabric was the stomacher. Then I added interfacing to every lining piece for more stability. We have a new addition to the bird sanctuary, which is this absolutely gorgeous Victorian-inspired ceramic birdhouse created by Pro Blick on Etsy. My mom had loved this artist's stuff for a while, and so we decided to reach out to see if she could make a birdhouse. She was so cool, and we kind of sent each other ideas of how the birdhouse should work, and she did such a beautiful job designing it. I love shopping on Etsy, but this was just such a special experience, and I'm not sponsored or anything. I just think that this artist deserves a little praise for such a beautiful piece. Her store will be linked down below if you'd like to check her out, and I really think you should if you have the time. Day 3. Well, actually day 2.5, because I started a lot later than I thought I was going because I started a lot later today than I thought I would. So we're gonna make this day one of the half days, yay! I have all of my pieces cut out and all of the interfacing done. We're gonna flatline these pieces together. If you want the insides of your corsets to look nice, as I say every time I do this, you could definitely sew your outer shell and your lining layer separately and then put right sides to right side and sew them that way. I also have the thinnest bias tape I've ever bought in my life. It's a 1/4 inch. And I just think hopefully this will make everything look nice and complete instead of what I usually do, which is to like turn every edge over twice. I just feel like this is like a nice professional looking finish to it. So let's get started. The first step was to flatline all the pieces together. Then it was time to make the boning channels. I started at center front and then added another one about 1.5 inches in to bracket the eyelets. And then one channel goes on each side of every seam. All these just help stabilize and strengthen the pieces of the garment that will experience the most amount of stress when laced. I now have this huge ball of boning that I cut each boning piece from, measuring about 1 inch shorter than the channels, so there is some wiggle room. Then it was time to add bias tape along the outer edges and the arm's eye. The second I feel in the fall mood, I know it is time to make some chai, and I don't think anything can beat some homemade chai hot from the stovetop. The next time I was able to work on the projects, I started by finishing more of the bias taping. This little 1/4 inch bias tape has become personal enemy number 1. I absolutely hated the entire process of using this. You can't stitch in the ditch at the end to try to make it look really seamless. You have to stitch like right in the middle of it because there's this tiny little difference between the front section and the back section. You just have to like stitch in the middle, and even then it won't catch most of the time. Like, I haven't been truly completely frustrated with something with sewing in a very long time. Like, I have to chill out and I have to move on. All right, so I went ahead and completed the bodice and the sleeves with this devil's bias tape. It's not perfect and I don't care anymore. There's one more step, which is to finish the front piece. I'm going to put right sides to right sides, flip it out, leave this top section unsewn, and then stitch the boning channels that you see right here, and then pop those in, hand stitch the top. Hand stitch? No. Top stitch the top. We're not hand stitching anything. And then for the last project, for this video at least, I thrifted this really pretty, this little blouse looking thing, and it's very fall pumpkin-y looking. I really love the fabric with like this textured thing that's happening here. However, the fit is very blasé. So we are going to stitch some elastic onto certain areas like the waist area, top of the sleeve, and I think that will fix a lot of my issues with this. So here we go. Once I stitched the stomach here together, I top stitched it down so that the fabrics wouldn't peek through on the other side. I then marked the boning channels and stitched those down as well. After getting a surprise visit from Ollie, I hand-stitched the eyelets with embroidery thread. I actually think I'm going to leave the orange blouse for the next video, so each video can be more equal in length, but just to let you know, with the end of this boned bodice as well as finishing the orange blouse, that only took me half a day to do, so we are now at the end of day 3, and it is time to show you the final result for the first 2 projects. And we are going to stop there for this week. Next week, we are going to be finishing up all of the projects, the blouse, the slip dress, and the apron, as well as kind of breaking down how I feel about every piece and showing you different ways to put some of these pieces together, you know, because I'm kind of making like a capsule wardrobe here. If you want to catch that video, be sure that you are subscribed. Also be sure to like and comment. Those things also help me out so much. That's gonna be it for me this week. I hope you had a fun time watching, and I hope to see you back here next time for part 2. Bye.